Here we go with part 2 of chapter 2. One thing I forgot to mention in part 1 of chapter 2 is federal court jurisdiction. If there are parties from two separate states, if the parties are from different states and the matter in controversy is over $75,000, you and your attorney can decide whether to bring suit in state court in the state that you're allowed to sue in or in federal court, but only if the parties are from different states and the matter in controversy is over $75,000. So let's get on with the steps in a civil lawsuit, which is what this second part is about. The first step is not a step in the book. The first step is, do you want to go on with life or file a lawsuit? Lawsuits are yucky, yucky, yucky. They're yucky on the plaintiff. They're yucky on the defendant. They're yucky on everyone involved. Do you want to have yuckiness in your life for these 5 or 6 or 7 years it takes to get to the end of a lawsuit? That's up to you to decide that. If you do decide to go to court and file suit, you go see an attorney, and that attorney can bill you by the hour. That attorney often bills you no cost to you unless he or she wins the case. Either are very legitimate ways. Next step is to consider settlement. In my opinion, and you can disagree with me, in my opinion, it's good to consider settlement very early in the proceedings because that avoids years and years and years of the yuckiness of being in a lawsuit. If you do decide to go ahead and file suit, if you look on page, let's see, what page is this in the textbook? On page 45 of the textbook, you will see a complaint, a copy of a typical complaint. It's a little shorter than most complaints I've seen, but not that much shorter. It just gives the who, what, when, where, why of the lawsuit. Of course, if you're being sued, it wouldn't be fair to you to have a judgment against you if you've never found out about the lawsuit. So once your written complaint is filed, you bring the papers, your attorney brings the papers to the sheriff's office in your county, and the sheriff goes and brings the papers, copy of the papers, to the defendant. That's called service of process. There's a great fun video on the hermit lady in New York City who tried to avoid service of process. I think you'll want to watch that one. The next element is the defendant files a written answer to the plaintiff's complaint. Then there are pretrial motions, the most important of which is a motion to dismiss. The motion of dismiss simply states that if the court believes everything you say in your lawsuit, you still can't win. In other words, you haven't even alleged enough in your written complaint to win the lawsuit if everything is true. That's a motion to dismiss. The next is discovery. Discovery is finding out things involved with the case. If you're old enough watching this video to remember Perry Mason, you remember the end of Perry Mason. It was always a big surprise and somebody was shocked at how the case came down. Well, it doesn't really happen because of discovery. Due to discovery, you're able to find out anything you want to find out about a civil or a criminal lawsuit well in advance of the trial, years in advance of the trial. You can do that by written questions to the other parties called interrogatories. You can do that by bringing in parties or witnesses and questioning them under oath. Those are called depositions. You can even ask the other side to send you copies of documents they have in their file. We're getting much closer to trial now. A few weeks before trial, we have a pre-trial conference. The judge wants to narrow the facts and really push for settlement, because if a judge can get the parties to settle the case, then the judge has a free day on his or her calendar, and the judge really can't schedule anything else for that day because they have to schedule their trial so far in advance. So hey, they may get to play golf that day. When you get to the court the day of the trial, you select a jury. Many of you have been called to jury duty. You've got opening statements by both sides. Each party calls and examines witnesses. Then they have the closing arguments. The judge gives the jury instructions. The jury comes out with a verdict and either rules, since this is a civil case, money for the plaintiff or no money for the plaintiff. We then have post-trial motions like a motion for new trial. Probably not going to happen because the judge just tried the case. Of course, every case can be appealed at least one level. And finally, you have enforcing the judgment, meaning turning your judgment into cash. What you don't want to do is go through 6 years of litigation, and after you've got a judgment for $34 million against the person, ask them, well, where are all your assets? And they say, well, I live in a refrigerator box. That's not good because your judgment is only as valuable as the defendant. Okay, that's it for Chapter 2.